trying to figure out and trying to cast blame. I take that with a grain of salt as well. But you don't see that right now. There's nobody in Washington, D.C. trying to work on this. The Senate, as you said, was sent home. There's nobody there. Donald Trump just got back from an Asia trip where he was gone for 8 days. People need to be back in Washington right now trying to solve this.
All right, welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down a heated conversation about the government shutdown where things get really intense. You've got people arguing over who's responsible for families going hungry, whether politicians should be playing these negotiation games, and one former administration insider drops some absolutely devastating testimony about what it was really like working during the last shutdown. This gets raw, this gets personal, and honestly, some of these moments are going to make you rethink how you see this entire situation. Stick around because the exchanges toward the middle and end are absolutely crucial to understanding what's actually happening behind the scenes. And real quick, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. I love seeing where everyone's watching. All right, let's get into it.
The President of the United States is the President of the United States. And at this point, as an American, I don't really care who's responsible. And I think a lot of Americans are feeling that way. They're like, the bickering game is happening. There's polls about, are Democrats more responsible? I don't care anymore. There's kids who are going to starve.
Agree.
The president should get up and say, everyone come over to my house and let's have a conversation. I worked with him in the last shutdown, the 35-day shutdown from 2018 to 2019, in the administration to try to get him to end it. And I will tell you very candidly what that was like. Days just got burned where the president didn't care. He wasn't thinking about it. He was thinking about other things. We said, Mr. President, the troops aren't going to get paid. Mr. President, people might not be able to feed their kids. Mr. President, essential government services are going to shut down. And guess what? He did not care, because to him this was a video game. But this is not a video game. Tomorrow night, there are families who are going to go out on American streets, and they're going to trick or treat from the start of trick or treat until the very end. Do you know why? Because that might be the food they can afford to feed their kids for the next few days. That rocks me to hear anecdotes like that. And I'm not blaming you for it, Congressman. I'm just saying I would hope my fellow conservatives call on the president to say, you know what, Mr. President? Who cares who's to blame? Bring them all to the House. Let's cut a deal. Let's reopen the government. Let's feed kids.
Even during the historic 35-day shutdown, SNAP was funded. And this is the first time that it hasn't been. The average household receives about $332 per month if they're using SNAP.
I'm not a fan of solving for one problem over another. A bill like Ted Cruz has to keep air traffic controllers going. This is all bad. The people vote their representation, and the government's supposed to do the work of the people. I say none of this stuff should go forward, so the pressure gets worse and worse and worse, whether it's SNAP, which is horrific, whether you can't travel. We're a very transit-based society in America. You can see it today. I flew into New York, delays like crazy, and it's just, these guys stopped getting paid tonight.
Wait, are you saying you don't think that anything should be funded?
No separate bills. I think you have to squeeze government on a bipartisan basis like a teenage pimple. Keep squeezing it until they get back to Washington and they solve the problem. Everybody's got an agenda item here. You've got this issue around health care. Other people have issues around SNAP. You've got the traffic controllers, air traffic controllers. Everybody's got an issue. And the reason they have an issue is the government of America is closed. So don't solve one vertical. Don't do anything until everybody is so pissed off. Because I'll tell you, next week, when the one that kills you every time is to get to an airport and there's a 5-hour lineup. That's the one that always gets government back to work. So Cruz is right to bring that bill, but I don't want it passed. I want those people pissed, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, saying to the representation, hey, bozos, get back to Washington.
This is what separates political theater from actual human suffering. When that former administration official said, days just got burned where the president didn't care, he wasn't thinking about it. He was thinking about other things. That wasn't hyperbole. That was someone who sat in the room watching this unfold in real time. They told him, Mr. President, the troops aren't going to get paid. Mr. President, people might not be able to feed their kids. And guess what? He did not care, because to him, this was a video game. A video game. While real families were deciding whether to pay rent or buy groceries, this was entertainment to him. And here's what makes this shutdown worse than that 35-day disaster. Even during the historic 35-day shutdown, SNAP was funded. And this is the first time that it hasn't been. The first time. So children who rely on food assistance are now in a worse position than they were during the longest shutdown in American history. Let that sink in. The cruelty isn't an accident. It's escalating. And when people say both sides are the same, show them this moment. One side is trying to feed children, the other is playing chicken with their lives.
And let me just say this, I'm sorry, the people that I represent can't afford a plane ticket. So waiting in line for a delayed plane is not going to get them pissed. What's getting the people that I know who are upset are the people that are literally not being able to eat. To say that you're not holding Medicaid hostage when you know that Democrats are trying to negotiate to get health care back on the table.
That's the Affordable Care Act subsidy,
right,
which is a totally different
Right, but you
issue.
know Democrats don't have leverage, so let's stop playing games. This is their only leverage that they
They've
have.
said this
Right.
is the only leverage they have, which is why they shut the government.
That's exactly it.
where's
Just
the
like,
deal- where's
the
just
deal
like,
maker?
so where's the deal maker?
Come
So
in and
where's
make
the
a deal.
So we've never allowed policy, and this is Chuck Schumer saying this. This is Hakeem Jeffries saying this. This is Nancy Pelosi saying this. We've never allowed policy to be extracted at the barrel of a gun by using a shutdown to hold the American people hostage. There's a very simple way to address all these issues. And by the way, I'm a lead co-sponsor on a bill to extend the ACA subsidy by a year. I went and asked Hakeem Jeffries 3 weeks ago, sign on to the bill. If this is what you're saying is the issue, let's get it done, sign on to the bill and join me. He said no, because it really was never about that. So if we want to address health care in America, let's do it. But you don't do it in a shutdown.
There's something really different about this shutdown. All of us who've lived through all these different shutdowns. I live in Washington, D.C., and what I remember from all of those shutdowns, you remember this, Sarah, there's always somebody on Capitol Hill bickering back and forth, whether they're with the Speaker, they're Republican, Democrat. They're going at each other, trying to figure out and trying to cast blame. I take that with a grain of salt as well, but you don't see that right now. There's nobody in Washington, D.C. trying to work on this. The Senate, as you said, was sent home. There's nobody there. Donald Trump just got back from an Asia trip where he was gone for 8 days. People need to be back in Washington right now trying to solve this.
Can I just say, because you keep saying over and over, there's never, they've always signed on. Let me be clear. I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat. I told Democrats they should have did the same thing that you're doing to them. They should have shut it all down, broke it all down. So I appreciate the or else, that the Republicans are doing if that is the agenda that you're pushing. So I just want to be clear about that. When you say they've always signed on, they should have stopped signing on a long time ago when Sarah was following us with the George Floyd matter. They should have shut it down a long time ago when we were looking to expand the Supreme Court. So I am all for, pushing the agenda and using what you can as leverage, and Republicans do that best. So now be confused why Democrats are doing that is confusing to me.
The moment they said, "Where's the deal maker? Come in and make a deal." That was the perfect question, because the man who branded himself as the ultimate negotiator is nowhere to be found when actual Americans need him. And then the Democratic leadership made it crystal clear. We've never allowed policy to be extracted at the barrel of a gun by using a shutdown to hold the American people hostage. That framing matters because it shows you who views this as leverage versus who views this as terrorism. And here's the smoking gun that proves nobody is actually working on this. There's nobody in Washington, D.C. trying to work on this. The Senate was sent home. There's nobody there. They went home. While families are rationing food, the Senate went home. And the president? He just got back from an Asia trip where he was gone for 8 days. He 8 days overseas while Americans are starving. That tells you everything about priorities. If your house is on fire, you don't go on vacation. But that's exactly what happened here. And the fact that Republicans are now shocked that Democrats are using leverage, please. This is the playbook they perfected. Now they're upset it's being used against them.
Conference last Congress that wanted to shut the government down over Joe Biden's open border policy. I and others said no, not because I disagreed with them on the substance of the issue, but because shutting down the government is not going to solve the problem. And in fact, what it's doing, the very people that you're talking about that are not going to get food assistance, that's what it does. It creates this tit-for-tat game where each side uses the American people as a hostage in a ridiculous negotiation. We can easily pass the clean CR, open the government up, pass an ACA subsidy extension. I don't want to see people's health care premiums go up. But the fact is that this subsidy, by the way, the Democrats passed to expire at the end of this year. If they could have done a permanent extension while Joe Biden was president, they would have done that. But
your argument is, let's just pass it and let's negotiate later. And that reminds me of sometime when men say, don't worry about it, I'll just call you in the morning. So I've heard it all before. I've cheated on you 655 times. But this one time, you know what I'm talking about. But this one time, it's going to be all better. So in the words of Sunshine Anderson as an R&B singer, I've heard it all before. So to say, let's just pass it and don't worry about it. That's not how it works.
Well, then you will see this happen every single time. If people want to use a government shutdown, you will see this happen in perpetuity every year, September 30th. One
We're
group
not
is
the
going to hold
longest
it,
yet.
and it's not good.
That's in about
It's
8
not good.
days. So you got, if you're
coming
going
up
for
on
the
it.
record, you got 8 more days to go. I think the date is November 15th. That's when the pimple pops. November 15th, you heard it here first. That's when everybody, including you, are double pissed, more than you are today. That's when everybody's paycheck stops. That's when transit shuts down. That's when people are starving on SNAP. Everybody's going to be really, really unhappy. And they're going to say the representation, red or blue, hey guys, get back to D.C. and solve this problem.
When that Republican congressman admitted, I had Republicans in my conference last Congress that wanted to shut the government down, and I and others said no, he accidentally proved the Democratic argument. He said, shutting down the government is not going to solve the problem. A Republican said that, out loud, on camera. So every Republican claiming this is justified strategy just got undercut by their own colleague admitting it doesn't work and hurts people. But my favorite moment was the negotiation analogy. Someone said, your argument is, well, let's just pass and let's negotiate later. And that reminds me of some time when men say, don't worry about it, I'll just call you in the morning. Perfect. Because that's exactly what this is, empty promises with zero accountability. Republicans want Democrats to give up their only leverage in exchange for a vague maybe we'll talk later. That's not negotiation, that's manipulation. And historically, when one side surrenders their leverage before getting anything in writing, they get nothing. Look at every major legislative battle in modern politics. The side that folds first loses. That's not cynicism, that's pattern recognition. So when people ask why Democrats won't just pass a clean bill and trust Republicans to negotiate later, the answer is simple. Because trust without accountability isn't trust, it's naivety. And the people suffering right now deserve better than politicians playing games with their survival. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.